This video is brought to you by MagicJank.com, the spiciest cards for your sauciest decks. Buy and sell Magic the Gathering products and gear today on MagicJank.com. What is up, Janksters? It's your boy Graham, also known as HamHawks42 on the internet, and today we have a special deck tech. This is a list that I actually did not come up with. This was a Patreon submitted deck from my buddy BiggHurt. Thank you so much for joining the Patreon and for sending in this deck list. And if you at home would like to submit a deck and have me do a full deck tech on it here on this channel, you can do that for the low price of $10 a month over on patreon.com/HamHawks42. There's a link in the description if that sounds of interest. But today is BiggHurt's day. So they submitted a list that is mono black. It's not quite like the mono black meta list that we've seen, although I will be touching on that throughout the course of the video, because that is one direction the deck could go to be a very solid competitive deck. But I have some other thoughts on different directions that we could take it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right on in. So here's the deck as submitted. I gotta say, I like a lot of what I see here, actually. We have some powerhouse cards that probably aren't gonna come as a surprise to a lot of people watching this, in that Sheoldred the Apocalypse is here. It's only a 3 of in this particular list. To be honest, Sheoldred is so good. You could easily go 4 of that card in any deck you have and feel perfectly comfortable with that. Like any deck running like heavy black, Sheoldred is just phenomenal. She's the best. So any deck like this is running mono black, putting 4 Sheoldreds in, you're gonna win more games if you do that than if you don't. It's a must-answer threat that can just kill your opponent just by existing on the battlefield, and you get a 4 or 5 Death Toucher for your troubles. Like for 4 mana, it's a pretty good deal. We also have Invoke Despair. It's great. Like if you're in a mono black deck, like Invoke Despair is one of those cards. If you can cast it, it's phenomenal, and it combos beautifully with Sheoldred as well. So if you can cast it, it's great. You're in mono black, you can cast it, no problem. So it's pretty darn great. This is another one you could go 4 of this, no problem. It would be very, very strong. And you'll notice, actually, based on the recommendations I've already given, just kind of scratching the surface, that there is an angle on this deck where we could take it and turn it into a meta mono black deck. And that's fine, to be completely honest. There is nothing wrong with that. If the goal of this deck is to compete consistently on the ladder, well, that could work. But I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. Let's take a look at what else we have included. So, yeah, Sheoldred Invoke, we know that. It's great. It's very powerful. Does the thing. Sorin the Mirthless is also in here as a 2 of. I think that's actually not a bad spot for Sorin. It's a solid 4-drop, puts a 2/3 flying lifelinker on the board, or if you can ramp up to that ultimate, which is difficult, to be fair. Like, you go with that +1 consistently until you hit that -7, and it's great. Like, 13 damage to anything and you gain 13 life, that's usually a kill shot by the time you get to it. Fantastic. Very, very cool. And at the very least, it's card advantage or a token. So whatever you need, Sorin fits the bill quite nicely. We also have Curse of Leeches. I think Curse of Leeches is dope, but at the same time, this is the kind of card that I say is awesome all the time, and then I never put it in a deck. So take that for what it's worth. I think the card is very strong. The fact that if it turns to nighttime, you get a 4/4 lifelinker that you only spent 3 mana on is pretty great. And on top of that, you're getting 1 ping. You're getting an individual ping on your opponent and a one tick up life gain on your turn if it's daytime. So that's not bad either. So I think Curse of Leeches is actually fairly strong in what it does. And if a game grinds to a halt and it does flip over to night, the Leeching Lurker is a huge problem that your opponent has to deal with kind of immediately. Now, if you were going to go the Curse of Leeches route, it's probably a good idea to put other day-bound, night-bound creatures in the deck, such as Graveyard Trespasser, or adding cards like Celestis that give you a little bit of agency over when it's daytime versus when it's nighttime. Those could be very, very powerful and very, very fun. So that's one angle that you could take there. Well, one thing you could do there, which is not a bad idea, I think. But, I mean, of course, I don't think it's a bad idea. I'm suggesting it. But in any event, Curse of Leeches, it's pretty cool. And this is where we start to see the theme that I believe BiggHurt is really leaning in on, and that is draining the opponent. So there's a lot of cards in here where the opponent loses life and you gain life, which is a really cool, idea. We also kind of see that with Sheoldred to some degree too. It's not a direct drain because they lose life and you gain life at different times, but it's based around drawing cards. So you're gaining life when you draw cards, they lose life when you draw cards. Mechanically, it's very similar. So that's Curse of Leeches. We also have Vampire's Kiss in here, which is just direct they lose 2 life, you gain 2 life, and you create 2 blood tokens. I don't think Vampire's Kiss is particularly strong. A 4 life swing in this way is usually not worth a card. It is worth 2 mana. For 2 mana, you get a lot of good stuff here. The problem is, it's taking a card out of your hand, and all you're getting is 1 shock to their face and a couple of blood tokens. If you can take advantage of the blood tokens in some way, maybe that's worth it. This deck, as it stands right now, isn't really abusing the blood tokens, so it's not really doing a lot for us, I don't think, to be honest. And, you know, yeah, 2 damage, 2 life gain. I think we need to synergize with it a little bit more. It's not a bad card, but we might be able to ramp into it, or lean into it a little bit more. We also have Clawing Torment. This is an interesting one. It enchants artifacts or creatures, and as long as the enchanted permanent is a creature, it gets -1, and can't block. Enchanted permanent has, at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life. I don't love this card, to be completely honest. I think you get some benefit for sure. I think the real benefit, the real time that I'm gonna consider using this is if I'm in a hyper aggressive deck where I want to be attacking with creatures specifically, because when you're attacking with creatures, you want to get blockers out of the way, like eliminate a blocker so that your creatures can be striking, and you're trying to race your opponent's life total down. You're trying to get their life total down as fast as humanly possible. And so Clawing Torment helps you on both regards. It prevents the creature from blocking so your attackers can get through, and it is a guaranteed single life loss if they can't like sacrifice the creature or, you know, attack into a situation where it'll die, you know? So usually Clawing Torment is pretty good. It's kind of like a Black Hammer hand almost, where it helps drive home aggressive strategies. And this deck is kind of more of a mid-rangey kind of situation. Like, I don't see cheap creatures that are going to be crashing in for damage consistently. You know, we do have Evolved Sleeper in the mix, which definitely fits the bill, but it as a 3 of doesn't really do it for me. You know, I don't think we're getting enough value out of that creature can't block factor. So, and other than that, the loss of 1 life on your opponent per turn is just, even only for 1 mana, it's just not enough. I mean, over the course of the game, like if you manage to stick this on turn 1, and whatever you stick it to survives throughout the course of the game, you might lose, you know, they might lose 5 or 6 life off this. That's not bad, but that's best case scenario. So I think you have to jump through a little too many hoops, and the payoff isn't quite worth it. Beautiful art though, and I like the idea of this card. It's one of those cards, I like the idea of it way more than the reality, if that makes sense. So that's one that I would probably consider cutting, but just putting it out there. We have Duress in here as a 2 of. I think that's actually right. In best of 3, Duress is the kind of card that you definitely want coming out of your sideboard, because you're probably going to have an opponent, at least in some number of games, where Duress is going to be a really good hit, where you can hit a Planeswalker or a really powerful, like, you know, 5 mana spell, like an Invoke Despair that they might be sitting on, possibly like a Fable of the Mirror Breaker, Rabble Rousing, whatever the case may be. Like, there's a lot of good stuff that you can pick off with Duress right now. Like, there just is. There's a lot of stuff out there that you can hit. So I think 2 of in the main in a best of 1 deck, Duress makes sense. That's actually, it's just good. I don't know what else to say. It's just, it is good, and it is well positioned in the current standard, I think. So as a 2 of. 4 of would probably be a little too much. 2 I think is just right. We also have Okiba Reckoner Raid. This actually, I think, is an interesting comparison to Clawing Torment, because for 1 mana, you get 2 drain effects. They're not just pings, and it's not dependent on there being anything else on the board. It just, you know, you throw it out and it just sits. So you ping them for 1, you gain a life. Great. So it's a 2 life swing, actually. You know, your opponent loses 1, you gain 1. That happens twice, and then you get a 2/2 menace on top of it. So you have a creature that's going to be pretty aggressive after you've gotten a little bit of, you know, gain and drain action. So I like Okiba Reckoner Raid. I think it's actually quite strong, and it fits the theme of draining your opponent down. Yeah, I like it a lot. So we also have Hero's Downfall as some removal. It's just really good removal. Like, so this is just solid. Like, it's not amazing per se, but Hero's Downfall is actually interesting right now because, you know, it's destroy target creature or planeswalker for 3 at instant speed. It just does the thing, which is exactly what you want to see. It's really funny though, because right now Liliana of the Veil gets a lot of press because she was recently reprinted, and it was a big deal when she showed back up in Standard, and reasonably so. She's a very powerful card, but she's a mythic for 3 that most of the time in a lot of games, people will play her out, down tick her, opponent sacrifices a creature, and then she dies. Or they don't want to uptick her because they don't want to discard cards in their hand because they already have fewer cards than their opponent at that point in the game. And so she ends up being 3 mana, target player sacrifices a creature, and maybe you prevent 2 or 3 damage because a creature attacks it instead of your face once. Like, fine, but it's not, like, amazing. You know, it's just kind of meh. And so, in a lot of decks that are running Liliana the Veil, you can actually make a really solid argument that you should be running Hero's Downfall instead. If the +1 isn't valuable, Hero's Downfall does the job better. Yeah, so it's... Yeah, Hero's Downfall is just good, frankly. The other one that you could include in a deck to round out the removal suite, the other 2, I should say, Infernal Grasp and Cut Down would also be really good here. Just as additional ways to kind of control the board in the early game while you're trying to drain your opponent out. So they're just good ways to keep the board clear. Speaking of ways to keep the board clear, we do have a 2 of Karn Sylex in the deck. I think Karn Sylex is a plant. And what I mean by that is I don't think it's particularly good right now. It's not well positioned in this current standard. It just doesn't do enough. The pay X tap, exile it, destroy each non-land permanent with mana value X or less is good. Although, if we're successful, we are going to have a couple permanents on the board. You know, if we have an Evolved Sleeper, an Okiba Reckon and Raid, and a Clawing Torment online, we're probably not going to want to rock this because we're going to lose everything we've set up. In addition to, I mean, so it's kind of an emergency panic button. Like, if we have to blow up the board and just, like, hang on because our opponent has overtaken us, yeah, having that panic button is nice. But I don't know. I don't love it here, to be honest. I don't think it's I think it's too slow. It pulls mana away from our primary objective, and in the situations where you are using it, you've already lost. Is kind of my feeling. So I don't think it fits this deck. Now, the reason that I say it's a plant, we're going back to Phyrexia. So Phyrexia All Will Be One is the next standard set that's going to be coming out. I will be absolutely shocked if Phyrexian mana doesn't appear at some point in that set. If you're not familiar with Phyrexian mana, it allows you to pay 2 life instead of 1 mana in a spell's mana cost. So as a result, you get cards like, I believe, Dismember, Gut Shot, you know, Mental Misstep, I believe, is the counterspell. There are a lot of, like, crazy spells where you can spend life instead of mana, essentially. I don't think they're going to reprint those in Phyrexia because they proved they were problematic in a lot of ways. But I would not be surprised. To be honest, I'd actually be surprised if the mechanic doesn't show up. I'm expecting some kind of Phyrexian mana, something. And we saw some in Dominaria. The Defiler cycle introduces Phyrexian mana, but I don't think they're common enough to merit including this because this shuts that off. It shuts off Phyrexian mana completely because players can't pay life to cast spells or to activate abilities that aren't mana abilities. Now, of note, the one card that this shuts down very, very comfortably is Tenacious Underdog, because you have to pay life to blitz Tenacious Underdog out of the graveyard. So that does shut that down, which is nice, but that's one card. And I don't think... I think running a 3-mana Hoser for one card that you may or may not run up against is probably not where you want to be. Speaking of cards that I don't think quite line up with what this deck is doing, we have Mirror Box in here. Mirror Box is a powerful card if you have multiple legends. So if you're able to get a ton of legends on the field, if you're able to, like, clone legends, for example, Mirror Box becomes incredibly powerful. Like, just flat out awesome. The problem is this deck right now is only running 3 Sheoldred. And those are the only legends in the whole thing. I mean, we have Sorin, so we could theoretically get multiple Sorins, but only if we got both that are in the deck. So out of 60 cards, we only have 5 legendaries. Mirror Box doesn't fit. It just doesn't. Like, it's a powerful card. It's really fun, but we don't have enough to make it make sense here. I don't think. Yeah, so I would definitely pull that. It's just not worth the card. And again, it's pulling. I would rather have a couple removals, like a couple cut downs, a couple Infernal Grasps, something like that, just to have some more early interaction, or frankly, more Invokes or more Sheoldreds, if you have access to them. Though that's kind of my feeling on that. So. That's kind of a rundown of of the main cards. And mana base wise, we have one Takenuma. It's a total free roll. If you're in, I mean, unless you need basics for a specific reason, like if you have, like if you're doing domain, maybe that's one thing. If you're doing stuff with like ramp spells that can go grab basic lands, put them on the battlefield, then maybe you don't want to run like all the channel lands. But in most decks, it makes sense to run one of whatever channel lands you're of the colors you're in, because they enter untapped, they're a monocolor land, and they have the added bonus of being able to be channeled if the situation arises. So one Takenuma, mwah, perfect, love it. We also have one Blast Zone. This is another emergency panic button that I actually think is pretty decent here because the cost is so much lower. So with Karn Sylex, you can pay a ton of mana into it, blow up a ton of stuff. And frankly, Karn Sylex does the job better than Blast Zone, because with Blast Zone, you get charge counters on the zone, if you will. You then pay 3 and tap, destroy each downland permanent with mana value equal to the number of charge counters on Blast Zone. So if you have 3 charge counters on this, you only destroy 3 drops. You do not destroy 2 drops or 1 drops. You don't touch them at all. Whereas with Sylex, you sweep everything. So like Blast Zone is a little clunkier than the Sylex in that regard. However, the cost variable is that Blast Zone is a land drop. You do have to sink more mana into it unless you want to hit 1 drops, but still, I feel like the fail case on Blast Zone is pretty darn good. You don't have to pay much to have the option. So that's neat. Speaking of not having to pay much for the option, we also have Mishra's Foundry in here. This as a one-of makes perfect sense. I think you could probably even go 2 or 3 of this, and it wouldn't be too bad, because it's a creature land. It's not a particularly good one as far as, I mean, compared to some of the creature lands we've seen in recent memory, like Adventures in the Forgotten Realm had some bananas crazy creature lands. This is not that, but it's still pretty good. Like it's still, still pretty solid. I like it. I think Mishra's Foundry is good action. So in any event, that's the deck. Now, my overall impressions, I feel like this deck is trying to do some pretty cool things, and there are a lot of different ways that we could take it. And I did put together a couple of lists that will be available in the description below of a couple of different angles that we could take on this. So with drain effects like Vampire's Kiss and Curse of Leeches, there are 2 sides of it. One, our opponent is losing life. Well, obviously that's good. That helps us get towards the game's conclusion. We're also gaining life. So I thought of a couple ways that we could take advantage of the life gain factor, and one was actually to turn this deck into Orzhov. So in the Orzhov variant, we're actually paying off the life gain element of the whole thing with Voice of the Blessed. Voice of the Blessed is a house. This card is absolutely incredible, and because it's an Ajani's Pridemate style effect, where whenever you gain life, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. However, as the number of counters grows, it gains keywords just because, including flying, vigilance, and indestructible. So as you can imagine, by the time you get to 10 or more counters on it, you have an indestructible 12/12 vigilant flyer, your opponent is probably just going to scoop. It becomes almost impossible to deal with, so they must remove it immediately. And that's just the name of the game. They have to remove it immediately. And the Voice of the Blessed is going to be ticking up every time the Okiba Reckoner Raid triggers, every time Curse of Leeches triggers, every time you draw a card with a Sheoldred on the battlefield, every time the Vampire token that Sorin delivers attacks, every time it connects, I should say. And we also added Phyrexian Missionary because it's a lifelinker that can pull the Voice of the Blessed back out of your graveyard if your opponent kills it. So this also is a lifelinker that can attack and gain you life to trigger on the Voice of the Blessed. I also put Liesa, Forgotten Archangel, in here because frankly, Liesa can just win games on her own, just as a 4/5 flying lifelinker. People do not see her coming, and it's pretty great. Additionally, whenever one of your creatures dies, you just get it back to your hand as long as she's on the field. So that's pretty rad. If your opponent does manage to remove one of your threats, you just get it back. So we're doing a lot of the same stuff here, except we have this little Orzhov twist where that helps kind of boost the finishing power of the deck. That's really the goal. So that's with Voice of the Blessed. Now, the major downside to Voice of the Blessed that I would be remiss if I didn't mention is that it does have 2 white in its mana value. Mana value? It's mana cost. The mana value is just 2. The mana cost has 2 white pips. Now, we want to hit Voice of the Blessed on turn 2. We want to hit it on turn 2 every freaking game if we can. That is the goal. If you open, you know, if you pull up a starting 7 and you have 2 white mana sources and a Voice of the Blessed, you keep it. Whatever else you draw into, you're probably going to be able to make it work, is my feeling on this deck. But Voice of the Blessed is just the house. So we have a lot of dual lands, all of them, including Scoured Barrens, which is not generally that great. However, it does involve life gain. So if you draw it late, you could trigger the Voice of the Blessed with it, which is nice. But we have, yeah, Shattered Sanctum, Scoured Barrens, and Caves of Koilos are all in here. If you wanted to add, like, yeah, I think there's at least one, the Dominaria duel, you could even throw it in here if you really wanted to. It just enters tapped, which is a major downside, so I didn't want to include it for that reason. But yeah, just we need a lot of duels. That's the name of the game here. You also notice I went up to 3 Saurians and 4 Sheoldreds for this because I do believe I do believe they are good enough to merit that. So yeah, so that's one twist, one take. As you can see, I cut out some of the cards that don't align with that theme. Meanwhile, other ones like, you know, we have Vampire's Kiss, Okiba Reckoner Raid, ping, 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 ping. We want to get that life gain action. Now, there is another twist. Now, I mentioned earlier when we were talking about Vampire's Kiss specifically, I was talking about ways to take advantage of blood tokens. And I have another variant on the deck that does that specifically. And this time, we are going Rakdos Vampires. So we're twisting things a little bit. We're really leaning into the blood tokens, but you'll notice there are a couple of blood token payoffs that we actually don't have in here. And that's okay. Because we have Anya, Maid of Dishonor, this card is a house. It's so good, and it mixes well with what we got going on so far because it's all about the gain and drain. You can pay 2, sacrifice another creature or blood token. Each opponent loses 2 life. You gain 2 life. If you wanted to make some kind of Mardu variant where you combine both of these decks in some cool way, I'd be more than, like, actually, come to think of it, I'm probably going to end up doing that. But that could be very, very cool. The other blood token synergy we have is Blood Tithe Harvester. This is absolutely fantastic. And yes, this is a deck that it has Blood Tithe Harvester, and it does not have Fable the Mirror Breaker. I don't think it's necessary. However, if you have Fable the Mirror Breaker in your collection, you could probably merit throwing them in there because it is fantastic. This deck also wants to be a little more aggressive. So we want to make sure our opponent is losing life as often as humanly possible, like almost every single turn if we can pull it off. So we have Aldarian Epicure that's going to be pinging early. We have Evolved Sleeper that can be attacking early. We have Vampire's Kiss in here because not only is it dealing that 2 damage, it's also putting 2 blood tokens on the field. If we Vampire's Kiss, like if we play Blood Tithe Harvester on 2, we make 1 blood token. We then use Vampire's Kiss. All of a sudden, Blood Tithe Harvester, we could tap it to destroy a 6/6. Like, that's pretty fantastic. And then, once we get Anya online, we have all these bloods that we can just pour all our mana into and just machine gun our opponent's life total down, which is pretty sick. Yeah, so that's the idea. You also notice we have Florian, Valdarin Scion. This is a really cool card. 3/3 first striker for 3, Vampire Noble, already worth the price of admission. Additionally, at the beginning of your post-combat main phase, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the total amount of life your opponents lost this turn. Exile one of those cards, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. You may play the exiled card this turn. So it draws you an extra card every turn, as long as your opponent got hit. Well, let's make sure our opponents keep getting hit. You know, if you have Curse of Leeches down, it just straight up draws you a card on your post-combat main phase, even if you didn't attack. So that's pretty sweet. Like, and so if we're successful and we're doing the thing that we set out to do, Florian is just going to be drawing us additional cards, which we need. We just need additional cards. That's important. Note, it's not a true draw. You know, it's an impulsive draw, so it goes to exile. So Sheoldred isn't going to trigger off it, but still, we're getting more resources. We're getting more options. That's what we're trying to do. So I'm proud of how these decks turned out. Like, I think we're onto something here. Yeah, so what I'm going to do, keep an eye on the chapters. I'm actually going to hop out onto, I'm going to jump into the play queue with a couple of these variants, and I'm going to show them off and see what we can do. So I'm going to start with the submitted deck. We're going to try it out. I might be eating my words on a couple of those cards, to be completely honest, because they may play better than I expected. But I'm going to try all 3 of these decks. We're going to give them a go. Keep an eye on the chapters. I'll let you know which one is which. And yeah, thank you so much. Let's get to it. This is an interesting hand. We have the Invoke, which could win us a game on its own. I'm going to keep it. I hope the Duress buys us some time. It's a little sketchy. We don't have enough early interaction to really make me comfortable. You know, like an Evolved Sleeper or something would be amazing. But we have a turn 1 Duress after they mold, so hopefully we hit something. Make Disappear, play with fire. I'm gonna hit that Make Disappear because we need the Invoke to land, especially if they have a Tolarian Terror online. We're gonna, yeah, they're gonna play with fire all over our face. We did get the Curse of Leeches, so we have something to play next turn. That's good. I'll take it. Yeah, they're probably gonna play with fire all over our face. Scry 1. They chose not to. Interesting. Okay. Very interesting. They're anticipating something. They're anticipating us having some kind of small creature that they can kill with that. Reckless Impulse, okay. Interesting. That's a land that we needed, so I'll take it. All right, Curse of Leeches. Getting that Make Disappear out of their hand, I think, was really important. I am very grateful for that. And now the onus is on them to play something on their turn. Otherwise, they're going to be staring down a 4/4 lifelinker. That's nice. Oh, that's very nice. This is making me happy. Abba's also only on 2 lands right now. They're gonna probably Reckless Impulse, hopefully hoping to hit a land, is my guess. Yeah, I think that's what I would be doing here. Yep. Here they go, and they got a mountain, and they can use that play with fire, hitting us for 2 and getting a scry on to try to make sure they hit additional lands. Oh wait, they have a Shivan Reef in hand. Never mind. I guess they're not hurting as badly as I thought. All right, they do keep it on top. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Good for them. All right, here we go. 4th land. Into Sorin.
Out of my way.
You know what? I'm gonna go for the uptick. Just go straight for it. You know what? I will lose 3 life here to get a Sylex online. I don't love it, but it's fine. Curse of Leeches is gonna be gaining this life. And I want that ult. I want that Sorin ult. Man, I want it. I can freaking taste it. Let's go. They could hit it with play with fire. They could hit Sorin with play with fire. They also have Fading Hope locked and loaded, so the token would have just gone immediately to our hand and given them a free scry and put a spell in their graveyard, which all bad things. I don't want any of that to happen. To be honest, I kind of, well, they have 4 spells in the yard. Ooh, Haudijin. I was about to say, I hope they play out the Tolarian Terror so we can have them sack it with Invoke. But to be honest, Haudijin's even better. Let's go. Ba-boom. So we're gonna make him sack the Haudijin, and we're gonna draw 2 cards, and they're gonna lose 4 life, or they're just gonna scoop. All right, it came together this game. It came together this game for real. That was nice. I like it. All right, good stuff. It's pretty heavy. Oh, you know what? Shakedown Heavy was actually a card that I kind of skipped over during the deck tag. I think Shakedown Heavy is a very good card. I think it's really solid. It is well positioned. It provides pressure on the opponent or card advantage. I mean, either way, you're pretty happy. So I do like it. I like Shakedown Heavy quite a bit. It as a one of in this deck, I don't know about, which you'll notice in the variants. This is, by the way, we're using the original deck list. This is the original BiggHurt deck list for this game, as was for the last one. So I like Shakedown Heavy. I think it is pretty strong. As a one of in this deck, I don't love it. Mostly because it seems a little disjointed compared to everything else that we got going on. All right, we got Mirror Box. To be honest, I think I'm gonna blood away Mirror Box because it's just not. We don't have any legends, so it's not doing anything for us right now. Let's let that go. But we have the blood token, so we can keep things moving. That's nice. I'll take that. And I'll blood away land too, cause why not? What are we trying to? Emperor's Kiss. Cool. I'll take that later. I'm good with that. Now, do you want to take 6 damage here? They do not. So they would like to give us a card. I'll take that. That's perfectly fine. All right, they appear to be on, I would imagine, some kind of Jodah list. Borrow time, going after their heavy. Okay, fair enough. We're getting lots of land. Emperor's Kiss. Blood away land. Let's keep on digging. Holy crap sauce. We are flooding a bit. Now, this deck has 24 lands, which is perfectly fine. Like, that is a really good spot to be, frankly, for the deck like this. So, it feels bad when you flood out, but not much you can do about it. Tis what it is. All right. So we got another mirror box. Again, no legends online at the moment, unfortunately. I'm gonna go ahead and attack first. I mean, that said, if we do hit Sheoldred, she just comes down as like a 5/6, which is pretty rad, obviously. And we also don't have any creatures in our graveyard, so if we activate Takenuma, you know, if we channel Takenuma, we're banking on milling a creature, an Evolved Sleeper or a, yeah, there's Jodah. There he is. Yeah, an Evolved Sleeper or a, what's the word I'm looking for? Sheoldred. That Hero's Downfall could not have come at a better time. Straight up, honestly, couldn't have been better. And they might actually have stuff on their turn, so I'm just gonna rip it now. I kind of wanted to let it switch over to nighttime so we could get our 4/4 online, but I can't risk them untapping with blue mana available and possibly holding up a counterspell. Like an Urtai would have been really rough there. So, yeah, didn't want to deal with that. They're just gonna rock out a token real quick. Ooh, and they hit a second. All right, all right. Maybe Clawing Torment's great. Maybe Clawing Torment's great. So we Clawing Torment their flyer. Now they can't block. I'm gonna go face here. We are racing. We are racing the clock. Oh, that's it. We got him. Because Curse of Leeches triggers on their turn. I thought, yes! Booyah! Okay, maybe Clawing Torment is great. Maybe I was completely wrong. BiggHurt, good work. In this game, we pulled off an aggressive game plan, and it delivered. It delivered the kill shot. All right, I'll try out on some crow on that one. Totally. Nom 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 nom. But yeah, okay, so those were 2 games where we played the original deck as submitted. I think it's pretty solid. Like, there's definitely a lot of good cards. When they line up, they line up. My goodness. So let's jump into, let's play some of the other variants and see how they do. Well, we got Voice of the Blessed in the opening hand. We have 2 white mana sources. According to my advice, as a keeper. Now, well, yeah, no, we do keep this. So we can throw Caves of Koilos on 1, lose a life, put out the Evolved Sleeper. Now the reason we're doing that is we can then play Voice of the Blessed on 2. So by playing a Ganjo as a land. That's the idea. And to be honest, right now, if they attack with the Delver, I am going to block here. Both of these creatures are incredibly valuable. I think the Delver is more valuable to them than the Sleeper is to us. So I am willing to make that trade. I'm going to attempt to play a Voice of the Blessed. They might have a counter here. They apparently do not. Let's go. All right, sick. So with these mono blue decks, getting an early threat on the board is critical. It is just super important. And so, I didn't want them to have that option. Ooh, they're going to negate my curse. I don't like that. Kind of needed that, actually. Now we can attack free and clear, though, because I can't activate the Foundry to block. That's fair, though. Actually, that curse was really important to us, actually. Suspicious Stowaway. All right. So they found another creature, cheap creature to tangle with. Skyward Baron is going to trigger our Voice of the Blessed, so we do gain. We're on the Orzhov list, by the way, if that wasn't abundantly clear. I meant to lead off with that, but here we are. All right, we're going to go ahead and Hero's Downfall. They're Stowaway. They might have a counter for this, which if they do, that's fine. Because if a counter hits, yeah, that's a make disappear that's not hitting Sheoldred next turn. Guess who's okay with that? This guy. And Stowaway's unblockable anyway, so we can get in for some damage. No reason to keep Voice back. So, groovy. All right. Thirst for Knowledge. And they discard... No, Thirst for Discovery. That's the one. All right, we got 2 back. Curious, what are the chances? What are the chances they have an Essence Scatter? I think the chances are higher that they have a negate They might have a make disappear, to be sure. I'm just debating on whether or not trying to stick Shelly here is the right move. Because if Sheoldred sticks, our opponent is in a world of hurt. To be honest, if Soren hits, our opponent's probably in a world of hurt too. You know what? I'm gonna try for Soren. There is a pause. Well, they have the other world of gaze down, so they might have... The pause might have just been because of that flashback. They may not have had a counter. But it went through. Alright. They're going to consider the following. That is perfectly fine. The fact that they considered after Soren resolve leads me to believe they probably aren't running Spell Pierce. Yeah, they're going to Fading Hope by token. That sucks, but it's a card out of their hand. So that's fine. And if the Stowaway hits Soren, then that's one day. Then it's not going to trigger the ability, so they're not going to get card draw, which is nice. I'm cool with that. Very much cool with that. Terror. Okay. Yeah, telling you terrors are legit. Oh, 2 of them. Wow, actually. Okay, that's... Alright. Yeah, that might change things a bit. I'll reveal that. That's fine. I'll test the waters here. Alright. How about now? Have we a counter? Perhaps not. Oh, that's the cave, so I don't want to... I'd rather not spend life if we don't have to. I'm just gonna chillax for a moment. Another really gaze, sure. So at this point, if they attack us with the Tolarian Terror, if they swing both of those at us, I'm gonna chump block one of them with the Sleeper. That's it. If they go both after Soren, they're just gone. That's fine. But at this point, Shelly is... We need to keep Sheoldred alive. Haughty Jin, okay. Yeah, we need to keep Sheoldred alive. That's the name of the game at this point. Yeah, everybody. Party time on Soren. Okay, sure. Yeah, that would have been pretty roughed up on the crackback, so that's an understandable. You know what, I will, since they're not putting too much pressure on us, I'm gonna use the Caves of Koilos there. I'm okay with that. But yeah, they're gonna keep Soren pinned down, which is fine. Gain 2 life. Voice ticks up. Let's go. We're gonna also uptick Soren. Yeah, hey, land. I'll take lands. Lands are great. Let's go. I am then going to proceed to blast that Haughty Jin because that thing is going to be our doom if left unchecked. So I'm not gonna leave it unchecked, doggone it. Alright. Gonna buff up our Sleeper because we can. Ding ding. Now we got a lot of death touches online. And at this point, we have inevitability. It is on our opponent to end us before we end them. Because we are in the process of ending them. Now, Impulse, unfortunately, is not a card draw effect, so Sheoldred is not going to trigger. Mild bummer, but that's okay. Yeah, in all honesty, we didn't get as many voice... You know, we haven't got as many voice triggers as I had hoped so far this game. Like, they weren't none, but they weren't as many as I'd wanted. Yeah, and our opponent's playing pretty conservatively here. Yeah, they're just keeping Soren down, which is fine. Preventing me from getting a lifelinker on board, which would be very useful here. It's probably in their best interest to really start swinging at our face, and they're not doing it yet. Another Shelly. Alright, tight. Yeah, so here we go. Here's our third counter on Voice of the Blessed, which, if I'm not mistaken, is going to lift it off. Oh, I am mistaken. But that's okay, because now we can start pumping mana into the Evolved Sleeper, which is drawing us cards, which is gaining us life, which is upticking our Voice of the Blessed. So, it's pretty good. Synergy. Got synergy. All right. Yeah, now our Voice of the Blessed has flying and vigilance, and as long as Sheoldred survives, they're dead on the card draw next turn. Got him. All right. So that turned out okay, I think. Yep. All right. So we've been going up against a lot of tempo games so far, and it's been going okay. It has been going okay. It's perfectly fine. Unless I have a stifle effect. Yeah, unless I can counter this ability. They are toast. Yep. GG's, opponent. GG's. Alright. So, I've switched gears. We're now playing the Rakdos variant. I see 2 Vampire's Kiss and 3 lands with Shelly down. I mean, the possibilities here are pretty great. So, I'm leading off with Haunted Ridge because we don't have a turn 1 play anyway. So, we might as well play it. Catilda's here. Okay. In, on, or around the house, as I like to say. Alright. So, Blood Tithe Harvester, possibly our best 2-drop, so take advantage of it. Also, Sheoldred plus blood tokens are pretty great effect, because every time you crack a blood token, you are drawing a card. So, that's neat. I like that. Sulphur Springs can hang out. Get on out here. Sure. Gonna Vamp Kiss. Catilda's probably worth killing here. I want to give them the choice, though. Because... oh, dang it. Fart. That is not what I was hoping for. I was not ready for Naganjo there. Well played, opponent. Yeah, that was a significant bummer. Might sound weak down? Ooh. Upper Rock and Urza? Are we going up against Bant Urza? Interesting. Alright. Didn't see that coming today, but alright. Cool. Yeah, we are gonna go ahead and go. We are gonna stick Sheoldred, because we can, because Sheoldred is incredible. No instant speed removal. We do get 1 tick down. Feels good. Alright. Now, perfect situation. We draw into an untapped land. We invoke Despair, and life is good. Just kidding. That Thalia makes that pretty much impossible. Yeah, actually, Thalia is a massive pain in my butt. Don't love it. We don't love it. Florian has first strike, so that is a decent little foil to what they got going on there. I am gonna go ahead and blood away this Vamp Kiss, because we need to make sure we hit our land next turn. Sulphur Spring, that'll do. Tight. Alright, cool. So, Helena and Elena is a colossal problem. Colossal problem. That card is incredibly powerful, and it definitely gives our opponent exactly what they need. Urtai, suck. That's bad. I don't like this. They're gonna blow up my Shelly. That makes me sad. I needed that. A lot, as a matter of fact. Well, you know what? We're not gonna hit Invoke next turn anyway, so let's just go ahead and dump that land. Get some life gain while we can. We actually got a better land for our purposes, so that's fine. All right, maybe we'll hit... well, no. And we got a castle. All right, cool. Cool. We're doing fine on land. Blooding that land away was correct. Denick, annoying, but fine. Yeah, our opponent appears... this appears to be... well, is this like... they're clearly going hard on the Legends plan. That seems to be the case. If I were them, I'd give it to Denick, and... I'd give Denick the buff and swing. Yeah, because they get the life link. They hit us for 4. Yeah. Problematic. Straight nothing I can do about it. Very problematic. Oh, is this humans, specifically? Alright. Sheoldred's back again. Tell a friend. And we now have an Involved Sleeper joining the party. Go ahead and just uptick that right away. Alright. So Sheoldred's back again, tell a friend. They do have a Plaza Heroes back, which we need to be aware of. There's Jodah. We're probably dead here. Even coming from 24 life, this might be a kill shot. If they Helena and Elena buff Jodah and swing with the whole team, we might be dead. We're gonna jump there. Gonna jump there. Nope. Gonna jump there. want to kill Denick because it's preventing 10 damage. And we just we're just die, or we are just die. We do just die if we do not block with absolutely everything, including Shelly, which sucks. I really don't like that. Yeah, at this point, our opponent overpowered us. We weren't able to get on the board and like stick reasonably. Yeah, so let's invoke first and see what we draw into. They're gonna sack probably Urtai, and yeah, not really care to be honest. Cure's fine. Yeah, Epicure, it doesn't even buy us enough time. They got it. All right, so the Vamp deck didn't turn out quite as solid as I had hoped, which is funny because we're going up against the Jodah deck. We went up against the Jodah deck earlier with the OG Mono Black version, and it crushed. Not so much with this one, but that's okay. We can't win every game. I don't think the build is necessarily bad. Maybe it could be better, but it was fun all the same. Thank you so much for checking out the video. I originally had like visions of playing like 3 or 4 games with each of the decks, and then I realized this video is already probably super long. So thank you for making it to the end. I really appreciate it. It means the world. And yeah, like I said at the top, BiggHurt, thank you so much for submitting the deck and giving me just tons of stuff to talk about. This is super fun. Yeah, and if you out there, viewers at home, would like to submit your deck and have me do a full deck tech like this on this channel, you can do so. Check out patreon.com if you sign up at the Mythic tier. That is a one of the many benefits that I offer. Actually, I need to flesh out the benefits a little bit more on Patreon, but that is one of them at the $10 tier right now. So thank you so much. I appreciate you. Y'all are awesome. I'll catch you on the next one.